Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 347, cover dated September 1997. The cover is by Joe Madureira, inked by Tim Townsend and coloured by Steve Buccellato. We've got their signatures there. I like the idea of the badges there on the lapel of Maggot's costume. And the main focus though is on Gambit. He's still in his Shi'ar uniform and he's being crushed by a huge hand there. And we have the helpful cover caption, Gambit crushed. We can see that with our own eyes, so I don't know what that's adding to anything. And we're in the era of the creator credits that are also included on the cover, a device taken over from Image Comics. Lobdell, Scott Lobdell, Joe Madureira and Tim Townsend, and of course Maggot there, being pushed by Marvel at this time to become a popular type character. But until I started rereading these issues for the channel, I had zero memory of the guy whatsoever. This particular cover, I don't know if it's the most successful, and it's a well-drawn image, but that big green hand is dominating things. I think it would make for a better splash page than a cover. But there you go. So let's open this one up to the opening page there. So we have a splash. That's pretty cool. And in the third person narration, we learn, until a few moments ago, Remy LeBeau believed himself to be far from Earth, light years away from the life he leads, as the X-Man called Gambit, from a world that fears and hates him because nature gifted him with something more than other humans, from a place where just being a mutant is a dangerous thing. But if there's one thing Remy LeBeau can never truly escape from, it's his past. A past he'd do anything to keep his friends from discovering. So we're really having Lobdell get our focus on Gambit's past again, and this is all in the build-up to the revelation of what the bad thing is that he did in issue 350, which is coming up soon in a few months' time with respect to the publishing schedule. And the third person narration continues past that. If he did not know better, it seems to have followed him across the cosmos. Unfortunately, he's now hit with the fact quite forcefully that he is home. So what's all this about? So the X-Men went through a Stargate, but there was an explosion. The Stargate broke up. And in the previous issue, we had one page of Gambit. Looked like he was on some other planet. And he was leaning over a pool, and a reflection in the pool was a big zebra head. But we're not going to see a zebra as this antagonist in the opening pages of this issue. So there was a change, because the person who drew the previous issue's sole page on Gambit was not Joe Madureira. So Madureira has come up with a different creature design, and we're going to see it now once I turn the page. And there you go. So we get a double page spread there of this big kind of, what is it, like a dinosaur-like creature, but it's sentient and it speaks. And it says, "How annoyingly, oh you low, I gonna swallow for a week." So it can speak, it recognizes Gambit, it knows his name. And Gambit responds, "C'est la vie, mon ami. You're the one what startled me by sneaking up on me like you did. Here I was thinking I'd been shipwrecked on an alien planet," which is what we thought last issue. "Then I see you. If I'd have known sticking that stick in your ugly mug was going to puff you up like this, I wouldn't have done it, probably. Don't know how I got back to Earth, but now that I am, I have to make sure my teammates are too. Much as I'd like to stay and make things right. Grovel." So this is this creature's name. "You'll excuse an old friend if I go looking for the rest of my team." So old friends. So these characters know each other from the past. So little mystery seated here in the opening pages. Gambit has a mysterious past. We know quite a bit about it from the miniseries about his past in New Orleans, but he has other secrets in his past, and we're going to be getting those in the run-up to issue 350. So the title of this particular story is Big Night, and the creative team, Scott Lobdell, story, Joe Madureira, breakdowns. So he's doing pencil breakdowns, not full pencils. So that is allowing him to do a full issue's worth of pages here, which is great. And it makes me wonder, why didn't they allow Madureira or give him the option of doing breakdowns more often in order to keep to the monthly schedule and also do complete issues. Because who's finishing the pencils? Well, we've got Tim Townsend, a very good match for Madureira in this era. And we also have Canon, I don't know the first name of this particular inker, and Al Milgrom. So Al Milgrom's pages are towards the end of the issue, very recognizable, his inks. I'll point them out when we get there. We have Comicraft, Richard Starking's Comicraft on the digital letters, and the Booch, or Steve Buccellato, on the digital colors. So this is a nice shot of this creature snapping the stick in its mouth and saying, and just because we knowed each one another once, don't mean we let that get in the way of a consignment. So the stick snaps, and that catches Gambit's attention. I like the way that Madureira has his face mostly in silhouette, and always when he does that, he's indicating, there's something suspicious, something shady about Gambit, about his past. Consignment me? He asks. But you're a bounty hunter, no? And someone else comes into the scene off panel with a spear point directed at Gambit's head, exactly where both bounty hunters. Gambit recognizes the speaker. You too, I should have known. So another revelation on the next page. Let's turn and take a look. And wow, so I wasn't expecting that. Before making this video, I obviously looked through the comic, and I have zero memory of anything in this issue, and even this character as well. But this really looks like the kind of character design that Joe Madureira would go on to do in his own title, Battle Chasers, for Image Comics. So obviously invited by Lobdell regarding maybe what he wanted to draw in recent issues, and also tasked with the character design of the new characters that are going to appear in this particular issue, and showing that he's interested in kind of sword and sorcery type design, which we see very clearly on this particular character, whose name we learn to be Spat. And of course there is a prior association with Gambit. She says to him, "You've always been stupid, you'll always be stupid." What is it you're trying to say? Asks Gambit. She says, "I'm saying there's a price on your head, Remy, a steep price, and I'm dying for you to give me any excuse at all to bring them just the head." So Gambit says, "Come on, you're not still mad at or sore at me about Madagascar, are you?" "Yes," she says. "Really?" he asks. "Really, yes." So we'll get a little sense of what happened in Madagascar, and also why it is she has the size of a little person here, but is clearly an adult with a history with Gambit. So Gambit says to her, "Pretty amazing coincidence, ain't it, Cher? Here I am with some fellow X-Men coming home after winning an intergalactic war by the skin of our teeth and saving everyone in the process, and suddenly we're slammed by this way big ship only to land here, wherever here is." So these are the events of issue 345, the end of 345 in particular. So she gets up on grovel and she says, "Remy, please, you of all people should know that in our line of work there's no such thing as a coincidence." And he says, and the creature grovel says, "I say you let me snapple him in 2 or 3 and we get half paid." And Gambit replies, "If I get a vote, I'm for letting me go free so I can track down the rest of the X-Men. They could be hurt, or..." And that gets her attention, Spat's attention. She says, "Is that concern I hear coming out of Remy LeBeau's mouth? He's actually learned to care about someone other than himself. Too bad, Gambit, too little too late, and too much riches at stake." So they're going to take him in for the price that's on his head. Yeah, so great opening art here by Madureira. And then what about the rest of the X-Men? Not very far away, somewhere on this alien-esque landscape, the Royal Shi'ar spacecraft Fireclaw, which had been carrying the X-Men, lands. And so it's a crash landing. It's just the cockpit that's made it through the Stargate. And emerging from the cockpit are the Beast and his erstwhile girlfriend, Trish Tilby, news reporter. So she's wondering what happened to the others, and Beast says, "You're in luck, Trish. The answer to all 3 queries is you got me. But you being the must-know reporter and my being the bouncing brilliant boy scientist that I am, let me posit these particular hypotheses. The mammoth ship that caught us in its wake also damaged the Stargate. So we saw that at the end of issue 345. And he continues and says the hyperspatial doorway that should have transported us to Earth's galaxy. Instead, the resulting alteration of its celestial coordinates landed us here. I can only pray that the other part of my theory is correct. Trish asks him, which is that because of the random effects of the transgalactic physics of Stargate travel, the rest of our friends have been deposited nearby and not scattered across the cosmos. And then he's holding his head and he's saying, the most puzzling aspect of all of this is that at the moment before entering the portal, when I turned to Deathbird for advice, it seemed she disappeared. So where did she go? And Trish says, it's great, the witch abandoned ship. But this is the point that the Beast is holding his head in relation to. He wants to find the X-Men, but he passes out. So what's up with the Beast? Well, great art on these pages as well. But there's a little bit of discontinuity between the captions and what we're seeing in some cases. A little bit of an incoherence on a few of the pages. Elsewhere then, far beneath the streets of Manhattan in the city of New York, so we have here Marrow, and she is hunkered down, holding her head in her hands and saying, I will not scream, won't give in to the pain, won't fall to shame. And she's got an injured Callisto with her. That's from the previous issue. And Callisto says to her, the pain, Sarah, only gets worse if you're trying to deny it. The same way you're trying to deny who you are, the way you look. I know you're concentrating, says Callisto, attempting to prevent the constant shifting and regeneration of your bones that is part of your mutant ability. But you're going against the nature of things. So this is an explanation for readers as to why Marrow, in her recent reappearance in the title, since Storm plucked her heart out in issue 325, when she turned up again in the previous issue, like 346, she looked less monstrous, less ugly, and so she's been trying to control her mutation, these bones, and it's taking up a lot of effort on her part. But Callisto, who's a Morlock, is saying you're going against the nature of things. So Marrow responds angrily, the natural order is what has always separated humans from mutants, Callisto. It's what forced the more hideous mutants into this city beneath the city. It's how we Morlocks found ourselves living on the refuse of surface dwellers. I will always fight against the natural order of things. So Marrow making the point, she's defending herself in her effort to control her mutation. So she's kind of holding two things together at once. It's interesting. I mean, the X-Men with the Morlocks do have, the comics, there is this ability to consider not just outsider groups by virtue of, different appearance or convictions, but also ugliness, like real ancient reasons for being outcast and considered an outsider, physical deformity. Very much intriguing that what the Morlocks can bring to the comics. So Callisto is injured, as I said, from the attack of the Sentinels, the Operation Zero Tolerance Sentinels in the previous issue. She's passing out there from the pain, and but she recovers a little bit, and she says, I was like Marrow, so like Marrow, young, angry. If you can't change the world, you're determined to burn it down. But there's more to life, Sarah. There's hope. Think back. Try to remember a time when you believed in something. So they're coincidentally in the part of the Morlock tunnels where Angel, way back in issue 169, was strung up. And so this is old continuity that Lobdell is referencing here. And Marrow was a child witnessing that. And so we have this flashback where she's fascinated by Warren Worthington's handsomeness and asks the question, is he dead? Come on, Sarah, says someone off panel. Now, girl. And then it transitions into Callisto on the blanket on the ground, and she says, and Marrow says to Callisto, I have to go. Things are bad up there. I need to go kill the people that hurt you and tried to hurt all other mutants to zero tolerance. But Callisto interrupts her, wants to give a speech to her. She says, I'm not interested in what they deserve. It's you I care about. All the suffering you cause ultimately comes back to you. Find the X-Men, Sarah. Help them this once. If they lose, we lose too. So what does Marrow say to that? She says, I'm going. Things are bad, and I will do whatever I can to make things better. And asks Callisto, and she replies, and I will try not to kill anyone unless I have to, she says more quietly. Promise? No, not at all. So moments later, when she's gone, Callisto prays, please God, I know I gave up on you a long time ago, but please keep her safe from herself. So interesting there, Lobdell drawing on Claremont continuity from decades earlier, well, a decade and a half earlier, Uncanny X-Men 169, and, you know, kind of implying that Callisto isn't the woman she was, the young woman, the young angry woman she was at that time when she fought the duel with Storm and was bested by Storm, that she's grown, she's matured, and now her equivalent is Marrow, and Marrow has to learn to be civilized and ethical, and so Callisto's the teacher, and this is the reason that Marrow will go to the assistance of Iceman and Cecilia Reyes in issue 68 of Adjectiveless X-Men. Okay, so let's get back to the rest of the team. So elsewhere, the mysterious mutant named Joseph and the X-Man known as Rogue discover their arrival in this strange and alien environment has been surprisingly comfortable, perhaps too comfortable. So at this point, we've moved beyond, I think, Tim Townsend as inker, and we have the second inker, Cannon, I don't know what his first name is, on subsequent pages up until when Al Milgrom takes over. So this is a really well-drawn panel here. Good expression on Rogue's face as well. So she says, Remy, tell me that's you. And then she thinks, what? Well, this is mighty awkward, because of course there's a love triangle going on between Rogue, Joseph, and Gambit. But Rogue really, truly prefers Gambit. And so we get a little bit about the last thing she remembered, the wrecked Stargate, and now she wakes up asleep beside this brook with Joseph. So she thinks about her power, and thank goodness they didn't touch, and then up she gets, and she tells him to rise and shine, and he's asking, is anything wrong? And up she flies and knocks in to something. So what is going on? So Joseph catches her, and he says, if what you gather is true, Rogue, then let me cast wide my electromagnetic biofield. So that is that there's something blocking her flight, and see what I can reveal. So he says, I tell you, Rogue, something is not right here, and I shall know the truth. And then we get into Rogue's first-person thoughts. I don't know if I like the sound of that, she thinks, or the way this looks for that matter. Before he lost his memories and started calling himself Joseph, Magneto was the X-Men's fiercest of enemies. Much as I'd like to believe he's changed for the better, each time he amps up his mutant powers, he makes me mighty nervous. So we saw that in issue 345 as well, where Joseph has been amnesiac, but every time he amps up his power, he's recovering memories from the past, from his youth in Auschwitz, his youth spent in Auschwitz, and maybe other memories as well. So that's all being teased here. And then the illusion of the alien landscape lifts, and they find themselves in a cave. And that's what she bumped into when she flew up. And so she's confused and wondering, why would anyone go through the trouble of bringing us here and then try to fool us into thinking we were somewhere else? So Joseph says, it's more than that, Rogue. What I find most disturbing is that somehow these caves are familiar. So Something to do with Magneto's past? Where could they be? In what point in his history was Magneto underground? So long-time readers would know the answer to that question. So there's somebody groaning off panel. By the way, I like the casting of shadow there up on the cave wall as well, and the hatching technique used. It's good. It's nice. So 3 miles away, we've got Trish with Beast. Beast still hasn't recovered fully. And then we see 2 miles away, we've got Grovel, Spat, and Gambit. And of course, the illusion has lifted for everyone. And then back with Joseph and Rogue. And this is the caster of the illusion. And he introduces himself, name's Landscape. Got the mutant power to create holographic environments. Leastways I do when silver-haired pinheads ain't taking the wind out of me. So Joseph responds, kind of like in the spirit of Magneto a little bit. Tread carefully, friend. Why did you want us to believe we were on some other planet? And Landscape replies, I'm a worker bee. I don't get paid enough to ask why. And then with Gambit and Grovel and Spat, Gambit is saying there was a time when you were above using a low caliber freelancer like him. He recognizes who it was that cast the illusion. Landscape. Ask real polite like Spat, and maybe you and me can get back into. But she tosses a knife right between his legs, just missing a very important area to Gambit. And she tells him, don't try pulling me into those dark red eyes of yours. Don't start talking about friendship either. You lost the right to talk about those things when you went to work for him. So, an allusion to the mistake, the dark mistake he made in his past. So we've got the Morlocks in this issue. We've got Gambit's dark past. We've got him in double quotation marks in previous issues. We've seen meetings between Gambit and Mr. Sinister. So how will it all come together? So Spat runs off and she says, not everybody's mistakes cost other people their lives. LeBeau. And what will Grovel say here? Dummy, he says. And Gambit says, she's getting worse, isn't she? So why is she the size she is? We're going to learn it here. Of course, she's getting worser. You were there when she took the bolt meant for you. Every day she gets younger and younger. When it first started, she was okay with it, but then she heard about what went down. So this must have been in Madagascar. She took some bolt that has her aging backwards. And Gambit says, mon ami, nobody feels worse about what happened than I do. And Grovel bumps him with his head to move him along. That's really well done. I like that panel. That's good storytelling, good imagination by Madureira. So Grovel says, so you says, move it. The sooner the job is over, the sooner I can go home, hose myself down and wash this stenchy smell off me. You know what? You want to know the worstest part? No, says Gambit. Even though he was always a bum, any one of us would have laid down our hides for you. 'Cause then you was at least a bum with honour. Yeah, well, says Gambit very quietly, that was just a rumour I started. And that knife that was thrown and just missed his crotch there, he has palmed it and he's got it to break free from those ropes. So that's nicely done, and it reminds us that Gambit, after all, is a thief and is practiced in sleight of hand. So he was teased on the cover, Maggot, and here we see him coming out of this saloon in South Carolina, and we know from previous issues he's hunting for Joseph. So here come the locals, and they're not friendly to out-of-towners. We hate strangers, they say, very cliched. And especially strangers asking questions. So what does Maggot have to say to that? No worries, no worry, mates, he says. How about I give you some answers then? Like, yes, they're with me, and eat them. They love them. So this is nicely set up by Lobdell. So the guys turn around. We hear these munching sound effects. Let's turn the page. And yeah, it's his creatures, his little maggots, and they've just eaten They've eaten the pickup truck there, and that's well done. And yeah, so the guys, these are the questions that he answered in advance. Where'd those things come from? Do they eat humans too? Same questions wherever we go, says Maggot. Refer to previous answers. So they all run away, and Maggot is happy with his little creatures. He calls them good girls. And one of them asks a question. Maybe next time that would be to eat the villagers. Let's just be happy we got the information we were looking for, that we're one step closer to finding the piker named Joseph. All right, so the hunt continues by Maggot for Joseph, and then wherever this is, but long-time readers will have a notion as to where it is. Here we are, we're in the Al Milgrom inked pages now. At this point, the last few pages of the issue. He's got a very distinctive brush line. It's kind of looser, more organic, less precise than the other two inkers, most particularly Tim Townsend. So landscape there, he's a big talker, big mouth. Do you ever shut up? Asks Rogue as she carries him. Sure, I'll shut up, he says. Shutting up is my second favourite thing to do. I'll shut up the instant we turn Gambit over. So yeah, his big mouth. I like this. This is a good joke from Lobdell in the dialogue. Did I say Gambit? I meant Hamlet. So Rogue has had enough. What do you know about Gambit? She asks. And off panel, a familiar accent says he don't know nothing, Cher. Let's get past the advertisements here. It is Gambit. He's got his hands tied still. Actually, this page looks like it might have been inked by Tim Townsend rather than Milgrom. But this is Milgrom and the rest are Milgrom, I'm pretty sure. So Gambit says, Brett there is low man on the totem, Rogue. In this line of business, the less someone knows, the better off they are. That's why it's better if you and Joseph don't start asking too many questions, because Gambit is worried that maybe Spat is going to blow his dark secret, and he's trying to communicate to Rogue to be not to not to get overly involved. Like, he's trying to keep her safe but also his secret. So she's there. We can't just let them take you. Trust me, Sherry says. I ain't going nowhere that I ain't supposed to. And then he breaks his bonds, knocks Spat down, kinetically charges with his mutant power the dagger, the knife, and puts it right up under Grovel's jaw. If not this dagger, he says, if not this dagger I appropriated earlier is charged with enough biokinetic energy to cut through even your big boned head. See, I may be a dummy, Grovel, but I'm the dummy that beat your sorry little butts. So Rogue is delighted, and Gambit, he's not up for a hug or anything like that. The others, Beast, Trish, Bishop, Deathbird, where are they? We don't know yet, she replies. We're searching for them, of course. But you can see the body language there. That's good by Madureira, that she is miffed at his cold response to her joy at seeing him. And Spat observes and recognizes not too much tension between them. If I didn't know him better, I'd swear LeBeau might actually be in love for the first time in his life. She clearly has a major Jones for him. I wonder if she knows what happened. Yeah, so that's what Gambit doesn't want. Doesn't want Spat spitefully telling his secret to this woman that she recognizes loves him or is majorly attracted to him. But then back to Joseph, and he's threatening landscape, wants to know more information. You led us to Gambit, perhaps you can take us to the rest of our friends. And then off panel, we have somebody singing Sweetie You're Home. So where was Gambit, or not Gambit, but Magneto formerly at home underground? Well, in Antarctica, yes. And Nanny is going to make sure her sweet little Magneto never leaves her alone again. So we haven't seen her in a long time, probably since the Byrne era, probably since Uncanny X-Men 112 and 113, but we have seen her more recently in Age of Apocalypse. Lobdell brought her back for that, a particular design, Madureira's design, which he's using again here, more or less. So this is intriguing, but she's accompanied. Nanny has company, and it's these strange biotech monstrous creatures like this bat here, and these strange looking ape primate like creatures in robot bodies. Like, what is going on? What's Nanny being up to for all that time in Magneto's former underground base in Antarctica? Yeah, decent story, or ending to the story rather. And yeah, great artwork by Madureira for just breakdowns, really turning out nicely. And like I said at the beginning, it's a pity that maybe he didn't do breakdowns more often in order to hit his deadlines, especially when Tim Townsend could finish his work to the standard that we saw in this particular issue. So a few letters here, one letters page. Again, people wondering about the identity of Bastion. I really like this full page ad for X-Force, and like a new direction beginning in September with John Francis Moore coming on as writer. John Francis Moore, he wrote X-Men 2099 as well. I did pick that up at the time, and yeah, this got me to pick up X-Force. Adam Polina's art was very interesting to me in 1997, and it's just so offbeat. So this was like an offbeat era of X-Force, very far away from how it started under the creative auspices of Rob Liefeld. Like the little sign, "We'll fight evil for food." Yeah, it's good stuff from Polina there. Let's get past these advertisements. Oh, and Heroes Reborn going on but coming to an end, not renewed for a second year. And that blue ball that Franklin had at the end of Onslaught Marvel Universe is going to come back into play. October, Heroes Return, a 4-issue limited series, weekly limited series. So they got it done in a month by award-winning writer Peter David and fan favorite artist Salvador Larroca. And then in November, the relaunched again Fantastic Four by Scott Lobdell and Alan Davis. They did 3 issues together before Chris Claremont and Salvador Larroca took over, and those are fantastic 3 issues. Captain America #1, the previous team before Liefeld took over of Mark Waid and Ron Garney coming back. And in December, Avengers #1 by Kurt Busiek and George Perez, and Iron Man #1 by Kurt Busiek and Sean Chen. I picked up all of those titles at the time. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 347. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments. And if you enjoyed my review, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.